Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the Member Management Mambo, Making Moves Matter. Thank you again for joining us today to really dig a little bit deeper into how to effectively manage your members, which sometimes also connects to managing your VISTA project. I use the term Mambo because in many ways, managing your members is really like a dance. You want to find rhythm in the steps that you take towards success. You want your moves to be sustainable and replicable. And just as dancing sometimes involves quick action, slow moves, and good posture, managing your VISTA members may require you to make a sudden move, be thoughtful and take time to process what's next, and keep good posture in terms of making sure that your VISTA project and members are in good standing and performing well. So without further ado, let's dance. My name is Eric Powell, and I'm an AmeriCorps VISTA training specialist with the Corporation for National and Community Service. I proudly served as a VISTA member in 2006 and a VISTA leader in 2008, and I'm very happy to be with you today. Also joining us today are Mike and Kim from our partners at LSI, who will be graciously managing the Zoom technology. You will also see them in the chat panel, posting some links and questions, as well as assisting with various aspects of the webinar. So here are our session goals today. By the end of the webinar, we hope that you'll be able to understand elements of VISTA member management. We want you to be able to recognize roles and responsibilities of VISTA project sponsor staff, explore ways to better support and manage your members, and we also want to be able to help you create action steps to improve upon what you are already doing to effectively manage your members and make your moves matter. Let's start with the big picture. Just prior to starting the webinar, we asked you the question, how do you define member management? And thank you to many of those who posted responses. We saw a lot of responses relating to managing members means doing whatever we can to ensure that they have a successful service year. I saw managing means effective supervision. Managing members is ensuring that your team is supported and meeting expectations for projects and tasks. So all of those are correct and good answers. And although this phase seems like it should easily be understood and defined the same way, it was clear that many people have different ideas, just as people have different twists on the mambo and other dances. You would probably not want to understand the history, structure, and high-level details before you get started, because that's something you really want to know. It is important to know the general picture and the big picture overview of managing members so that you can get the more specific and customized details in what you do and how you effectively manage them. Here are just some of the elements of member management that we want to point out for you. Many of these should be familiar to you. So let's start. When the hands, feet, and body all work together to form seamless motion, the mambo looks like a beautiful dance. Similarly, when you, your VISTA project staff, and your VISTA members are on the same page and work together to learn, support, grow, and succeed, your VISTA project looks beautiful and works well. It won't always be easy, but you can make it easier by utilizing ideas from other supervisors, using your own knowledge, and seeking input from your VISTA members. Be sure to ask them about how you can better supervise them, what they feel they need in order to succeed, what information would help them best fulfill the duties of their VAD, and more. All of these elements directly connect to VISTA member management. Let me give you an example. Your VISTA project is required to report on member activities and the progress of the project. Although a lot of those reporting relates specifically to project management, the member management element of it is you connecting with your members to have them give you the information that you need to complete the reports. You're helping to manage your members so that you can help manage the project. You can discuss this with them in your regular meetings and give them a guide to help them best compile their accomplishments and achievements so that it easily fits into your reports. We show this slide because even though it should be pretty much common sense, it's important for you to know this and for you to let your VISTA members know this as well. You want them to know that their direct supervisor is their first point of contact. And let me quickly say, when it comes to member management, one of the biggest concerns and issues is people either not knowing who their supervisor is or not knowing how to reach their supervisor. So make sure that person is clearly pointed out to the VISTA member. And if your VISTA project has a VISTA leader, that's also a primary point of contact, but please keep in mind the VISTA leader is not a supervisor. And no matter what you tell your VISTA members, we hope that you're telling them good stuff and the reality of the situation. VISTA members are permitted and able to contact their CNCF state or regional office directly, especially if by chance they have an issue with their direct supervisor or need additional support. The CNCF state or regional office is there for the good and the bad, and you need to make sure that your VISTA member knows specifically who their supervisor is, that this individual is their primary point of contact, and that they have other resources as well. And of course, if the VISTA member has concerns about their supervisor or just needs to contact CNCF in general, they can contact the CNCF state or regional office directly. We can't stress that enough. And any matters that cannot be resolved by the CNCF state or regional office, or any matter that requires higher level investigation, can go to CNCF headquarters for resolution. And when you think about member management, the vast majority of problems that occur in relation to member management and the member's year of service are also connected to supervision and communication. Now, I'm not saying that it's always the supervisor's fault, nor is it necessarily always the VISTA member's fault. But as many of you mentioned in the chat earlier, strong, effective, consistent communication and supervision makes a huge difference in terms of a VISTA member's satisfaction, retention, and success. So when you think about managing your members, remember that the VISTA member is a person with feelings and someone who likely has serious interest in making a positive impact in your community with their motivation and inspiration to serve. So help feed that energy and be the guiding light that they need. So take a quick minute to think from the lens of a VISTA member. In your eyes, what do you think a VISTA member would say is the most critical element of member management for them and their service? Think about your member management roles and responsibilities. Think about your VISTA members and what you have heard them say. Go ahead and post your comments in the chat panel. And this is an important question to answer now, and especially you may want to ask other VISTA project staff at your site the same question, because if you're able to think about the eyes of a VISTA member and what's going through their mind, or maybe you've already talked to them, it really helps you to think about how to more effectively manage your members. So I see a couple of responses coming in. Some people think that VISTA members would say the most critical element of member management for them is clear expectations and support. That is wonderful and absolutely true. Because if a VISTA member starts and isn't given the right expectation or assumes the wrong things based on the information they're told, it does not set them up for success. I see clear and open communication. Again, we cannot stress how important that is, and I'm sure all of you know that, so I won't belabor the point. And effective communication, lines of authority, who to listen to and when, because sometimes people either have multiple supervisors or they have a VISTA leader and a supervisor, but they're not sure which one officially supervises them, so keeping the lines of authority clear are critical. And the last one I'll comment on is VISTA members want their supervisor to be approachable and empathetic. Of course, if a VISTA member has questions or concerns, they don't want their supervisor to say, I'm too busy or deal with it. They want to be able to at least set time and have a conversation with them to be able to schedule how to resolve those issues. So keep those ideas coming. I think they're very useful and can help a lot of the supervisors on this webinar. And I want you to continue to think that if you see great ideas and suggestions in the chat, feel free to copy them and adjust them for your VISTA project, because that may help you think of new ways to manage your members as we go throughout this webinar. So we talked today about the Mambo and how it relates to member management, but we know there's different types of dances, and the Mambo is one that, if any of you have ever done the Mambo, it's not a solo dance. You need a dance partner. I guess you could try doing it by yourself. It might look a little weird, but that's up to you. The same is true for managing members. The members are not alone and should not feel alone. Their direct supervisor has a lot of influence and impact on the success of the VISTA member, but again, they cannot do it alone. Everyone needs to know their role, and the role of others so that they can coordinate and work together. The partnership involves many elements, including you and your members keeping track of data for your reporting, your staff, or your volunteers helping to promote the program, other people at your agency understanding the uniqueness of the VISTA position, and not treating them like an intern or administrative assistant. Part of member management is helping the VISTA to understand who they are and how they fit into the organization. People, including VISTA members, watch your moves. They're not stalking you, but they do pay attention to what you're doing and what you're saying. They follow your lead, and they look to you, their supervisor, for guidance. So it's absolutely essential that you know your requirements so that you don't miss a step. So this is a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer it. But how many of you feel like you are having or have had problems with retention? I know in the pre-webinar registration, a few people talked about one of the things they would like to see, or some of the questions they have is, how can I do a better job at retaining my members? And when we talk about retention, what we're talking about is keeping your VISTA member for their entire year of service. We know that some of them may have to leave for reasons outside of your control. For example, they have a family member that's seriously sick, or maybe they happen to get a job that they've always wanted, so they leave the position. But remember that there is a lot that is within your control, and it relates to communication, as many of you said, and many other things. And your members may also not tell you the complete reason why they leave their service early or why they're unmotivated. So then that falls to you, their supervisor, and their project, to get to know your members and to manage them by understanding who they are and what their needs are. And one of the best ways to effectively manage your members, in addition to communication, is really knowing the program expectations, as people mentioned, and the benefits, as well as fully understanding the terms and conditions of service. You want to set a strong foundation for your member by developing a thorough VISTA assignment description, what we call a VAD, for each member. Keep in mind that many of you might say, I've got a great VAD and this thing works, which is wonderful, and we want you to have buy-in in it too. But it's not just enough if you think the VAD is all that in a bag of chips. Hopefully you understand that phrase. Have other people review the VAD to see if they understand it, if the goals and objectives are clear, and if they can easily see the link between the member activities and capacity building actions towards sustainability. As you know, the VAD is what really drives the VISTA member service. And if it's not understandable, or if someone reads it and says, this doesn't really make any sense, I don't see the connection to poverty, you may want to take a second or a third look at it. If you happen to need additional support crafting, refining, or developing your VAD, you can contact your intermediary if you're a sub-site, or your CNCS state or regional office if you're a single site or intermediary, or look on the VISTA campus in the recorded section of Supervisor webinars and look for upcoming webinars on VISTA assignment descriptions as well. Also, you want to provide ongoing support and guidance to your VISTA members. As many of you mentioned, the quality of support you provide will help determine the success of their service experience. Actively listen to their verbal and body language and consider adjusting your supervision and member management as needed. You want your VISTA project to succeed, and your VISTA member really wants to succeed as well. So let's try to work together to find a way for both of those to happen. If you are one of the people that wrote your VISTA grant, you probably have read the Memorandum of Agreement, which lists the sponsor obligations and responsibilities, and you can revisit it by logging into your eGrants account. This is just a simple reminder that some of these provisions include making sure that their supervisor provides a direct on-site orientation and training, what we of course use acronyms and call it an OSAT, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It also requires that sponsors ensure that every VISTA member has a trained direct supervisor to guide, support, and coach members. If you happen to be an intermediary sponsor with multiple sub-sites, you will need to be sure that each site supervisor has the tools that they need to successfully supervise and support their VISTA members. So let's briefly talk about the OSAT, the on-site orientation and training. This is essential and critical to member management in terms of successfully starting a VISTA member's year of service. The VISTA project is responsible for providing a local on-site orientation and training for each member once they arrive on site. Now, obviously, if you have multiple members, you can put them all in the same on-site orientation or training, but it's important that you do conduct one. And as you may know, the OSAT should include, but not be limited to, orienting the VISTA to their service site and the community, orienting them to the purpose, plans, and goal of the VISTA project, introducing them to key people in the organization, explaining details about the sponsoring organization and how the VISTA member and VISTA project fit into it by talking about the mission and vision, training the VISTA member so that they know their responsibilities as outlined in the VAD, acknowledging and working to incorporate the members' responsibilities and activities as well as their skills and interests into the OSAT and their service, and making sure that the OSAT is informative, educational, and fun. The better the OSAT, the shorter the learning curve, and the more likely the VISTA member will feel included, needed, and many of you talked about it earlier, relates to retention. If you have a really good OSAT and get the member's service started off well, you have a much better chance of maintaining a member and retaining them as well. Take some time to really help the VISTA member understand why their VISTA position is important, what they're supposed to do, and help them understand that they as a person are valued at the project and needed when conducting the OSAT. So you're probably asking yourself questions about how do these items on the screen relate to member management? Well, let's not dance around these issues as they may not be as obvious. So even though it is the VISTA member's responsibility to get fingerprinted, you should know the rules around the VISTA fingerprint policy so you can support your VISTA in getting fingerprinted early and make sure they do this well in advance of the fingerprinting deadline to avoid potential requests for termination. We really don't want that to happen. If you happen to fail to know the specific rules around VISTA members' 10 personal and 10 medical days of leave, you may end up with an unhappy member who is really wondering why there's a discrepancy between the amount of leave you say the member has to this. I would strongly recommend you look at the VISTA member handbook that gives all the guidelines that you need. Also, if you're a VISTA project that in their VISTA assignment description lists service-related travel, that you may have the member that needs to go, for example, from the office to a project site and they're going to be driving their car, it's your responsibility to make sure you reimburse the member at whatever rate your organization reimburses them. So you need to know the details around that because, again, it relates to member management in that members are expecting to get compensated and reimbursed. And if they're not, or if there's confusion, they may wonder why they're out of pocket for an expense for their assignment that they didn't expect. It all relates to just making sure you're communicating information ahead of time. So let's move on to the sponsor verification form. You want to make sure that you submit that every 2 weeks in eGrant. Now, I should say, you on the webinar may not be the person that submits it, depending on your role. But that sponsor verification form is absolutely critical because it's directly connected to member payroll, and it shows us whether VISTA members are currently serving or not. So if you forget to do it, that's a problem because that could delay a member's pay, and they will really not be happy about that. So make sure that if it's you or whoever in your organization is responsible for the sponsor verification form, that they submit that when they get the communication every 2 weeks. Finally, all of these are in support of your managing members who feel valued, welcome, and needed at your project. Some of these are small details, but they can make a significant difference in the year of a VISTA member. And don't forget to check out the VISTA campus site for more resources and details about this, such as the VISTA member handbook that I mentioned and the VISTA sponsor handbook. So just as the Mambo has its own rules around what defines it and what makes it the Mambo, member management involves explicit rules that need to be enforced. VISTA members are required to take the Terms and Conditions course before the start of service, and they need to know the following terms and conditions of service, and of course, they also need to make sure that they know the details of their benefits. So we're going to take a very brief look at them now so that you understand the overall picture and can later get more information on them as how you can effectively manage your members around these terms and conditions and benefits. In simple form, here are some critical terms and conditions of VISTA service. And again, you probably already know these, but just a quick highlight. If a member violates any one of the terms or conditions, you, the supervisor, and the VISTA project need to contact your CNCS state or regional office staff immediately. Different violations have different repercussions, and for the protection of the project and any other members serving, it's critical that you act promptly. So let's see how much you know about a few terms and conditions. When it comes to employment, I think everyone probably knows VISTA members are permitted to work part-time as long as the work is legal and does not conflict with their VISTA member service or hours. Also, as long as they are not employed by the sponsor, the VISTA sponsor, and they have approval of you, the VISTA supervisor. VISTA members who want or already have outside employment need to complete a request form that goes to either supervisor and then to their CNCS state or regional office for investigation and approval. Criminal activity, I'm sure many of you know that one of the terms is that VISTA members need to go a criminal history check. There are a few conditions that would immediately disqualify a member from service, at which point they wouldn't even get to your project site. And there are a couple of other conditions that won't necessarily disqualify a VISTA member from service, but could impact his or her service. Again, I won't go into all the details now, but it's good for you to know the high-level details. And if you have questions, you can reach out on the VISTA campus in the benefits section for all the details. And really quickly, religious activity. You probably know that VISTA members may join their colleagues in prayer at their service site, but they cannot proselytize nor ask people to pray with them. Also, while their dad cannot ask them to pray, they are able to practice their religion on their own time. And in terms of political activity, one point we want to highlight very importantly is that VISTA members cannot be involved in voter registration as part of their VISTA service. They can do it if it's not part of their VISTA service. It has to be completely separate, and they have to do it on their own time, not in VISTA gear, and not identifying themselves as a VISTA member. In general, VISTA members cannot engage in political activity, religious activity, lobbying, or union organizing as part of their VISTA service or while perceived to be a VISTA member. They can go to rallies or attend church services on their own non-VISTA member time, but cannot engage in any other type of activity while serving or while identifying as a VISTA member. And the last comment on the slide, we don't have time today to go deep into all the material in the terms and conditions course, but if you are interested in getting more of the detail, you actually can take the VISTA terms and conditions course on the VISTA campus if you'd like to do so. So this slide is just a very quick slide to show you generally many of the benefits and elements of VISTA member management that tie into your project and questions that VISTA members have. The VISTA members should first look for details and answers to these questions in the benefits section of the VISTA campus and in the VISTA member handbook. And if they're not able to find the answers, they can certainly contact the VISTA Member Support Unit, or VMSU, through the National Service Hotline. And again, I just want to say, these topics may not seem as obvious in terms of member management, but the more that you know as you're effectively managing your members, you don't have to know the answer to everything, but at least since you're their primary point of contact, if someone has a question for you about their living allowance or their education award, you may not know the answer, but at least knowing where to direct them for support helps to minimize issues and concerns and get them on their way to hopefully being retained at your VISTA project. We're going to move now to see if there's any quick questions in the chat. We have time for maybe 2 or 3 questions. If you do have questions, please type them in the chat panel, and we will take a minute to see what questions come up. I saw a question earlier about how can VISTA projects successfully help retain and manage members with any kind of free software or free events. The comment was in relation to some projects don't have a lot of money to show their appreciation for VISTAs. So what can projects do to help really show VISTAs how important they are and retain them? So I will provide an answer, but if you do have any questions, feel free to please type those in the chat. So certainly when it comes to free, sometimes people overlook the really important simple things. And sometimes that could be literally just making a card for a member and having people sign it. Sometimes VISTA members have shown that one of the things they appreciate the most is just the supervisor saying thank you, or publicly acknowledging them in a meeting, telling them about the great work they did. So there's a lot of different innovative things you can do. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but it also helps when you get to know your VISTA member and think about what you're doing and who they are. As we said earlier, actively listen to what they like, and that might help you think of other ways that you can help acknowledge them, either free or with little cost to you that really helps them. I don't see any other questions at this point. Again, if you do have questions, please type them into the chat, and we will come. Oh, I'm sorry, I see there's a question. So we'll get to that one a little bit later. We'll have a little bit of time at the end of the presentation for additional questions. So if you do have questions, please type them into the chat, and we'll get through the remaining part of our presentation now and continue with questions in a few minutes. So I wanted to quickly bring your attention to reporting. When you're dancing, you want to look good, don't you? Of course. No one wants to make embarrassing moves or awkward mistakes. Well, the dance moves in reporting are similar in that you want to evaluate and talk about how you're doing, make sure you're on the right track, and really think about how you can improve and look good, not just for yourself, but for your VISTA project and your sponsoring organization. All VISTA projects are responsible for reporting, and since there are several reports, it's important to know how the details of each can be easily able to be distinguished and relates to member management. So let me give you a couple of really quick hints. First, you know that your project has a couple of reports to do, so instead of you having to take all the time to write up all that information, consider having your VISTA members compile information, perhaps on a monthly basis, to capture much of the details that you need for your reports to CNCS. This is a brilliant strategy because it not only helps you with your reports and more easily getting the information, but it also helps your VISTA member to keep track of their progress for their own personal and professional development. And it puts a little bit of onus on them to help them describe what they've been doing in relation to their grant. Also, certainly eGrant, as you use it for the reports and everything, another helpful hint, understanding that currently eGrant best functions using Internet Explorer. Hopefully that will change, but that's one thing you should know. And also, you should keep in mind that for all of your reports, it's best practice to draft your reports in Microsoft Word and save them to your computer, and then copy and paste them into eGrants. As many of you have probably figured out, eGrants, for security reasons, will log you out after a period of inactivity. So don't get caught writing the first draft of your report in eGrants, step away from your computer, and realize all the information is lost. Do it in Word, copy and paste, and you'll be good to go. So we talked about this briefly. The easiest and most frequent report you'll complete is the sponsor verification form. And again, I'll just highlight that the sponsor verifies that active VISTA member status every 2 weeks in eGrants by submitting this form online. And if you have any questions, you can visit the AmeriCorps VISTA Supervisor's Handbook on the VISTA campus for details. Member management also comes with its own regulatory compliance. AmeriCorps VISTA, through CNCS, is a federal program, and like anything supported by taxpayer funds, we need to ensure that the program is well run, doing what it's supposed to, and spending money wisely. Like all federal agencies, CNCS has an Inspector General whose office is responsible for preventing and detecting waste, fraud, and abuse. And these hopefully are not new to you. Some red flags to be aware of. If VISTA members are being asked to take over the work of staff, let's say someone left the organization and it's going to be a few months before they're replaced, that's considered replacing staff and it's not allowed. Or if a VISTA member is mostly doing administrative support for someone else, that's also not appropriate work for a VISTA member, because VISTA members really should be focusing on the things outlined in their VISTA assignment description, which ties directly to the overall project plan that was approved by CNCS. And finally, the majority of your VISTA's work should be capacity building. not direct service. Your badge should not have anything about direct service in it. And you'll be learning more about what these look like as we go through the webinar over the next couple months and other webinars. We in the VISTA program instruct the VISTA members who feel that they're being asked to do things that are not appropriate for VISTAs to first talk about it with their direct supervisor. From there, they can talk about it with the CNCF state or regional office. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, if the issue isn't resolved, they have other resources and they can contact the CNCF Office of Inspector General if need be. The Office of Inspector General takes all allegations seriously and conducts thorough investigations to ensure compliance with federal regulations and the terms of the VISTA program. So be sure that your VISTA member and your VISTA project are both in compliance. Looking at the positives of what you do, because I'm sure many of you out there have done a lot of work and are doing a lot of great things, take a moment to answer this question in the chat panel. Please list one specific thing that your VISTA project does to successfully manage its members. And this could be any strategy you use, such as sending a version of the project progress report to your members and have them collect data for their own records. It could be effectively training your supervisors and ensuring that they're being supported so that your large VISTA project is performing well. Go ahead and list one thing that your VISTA project is doing to successfully manage its members. And again, as I mentioned this, take advantage of the ideas that are posted in the chat. We provide you with a lot of information, but oftentimes supervisors find some of the most effective and useful information coming from other supervisors, such as monthly check-ins by phone with VISTA members and site supervisors. And I would encourage you, if you have VISTA members at your site, in-person meetings are great as well, because that way they show that you care about them. One-on-one meetings, community introductions, introducing the VISTA member to the community, knowing the surroundings and people who are important in the community that relate to the VISTA project. And I see a recommendation that for projects that are not close by and need to use technology, Microsoft Teamwork or Microsoft Teams is a software that you can use to detail what VISTAs have worked on, people are talked with, and you can share resources together. And then the last one I'll mention, all these are great ideas. Having an open door policy, certainly setting up a time to meet with your member on a regular basis, but letting your VISTA know that if they have concerns, questions, or just need to talk, they can just come up to you and they don't have to have a scheduled meeting. If you have resources that relate to this topic and can be a benefit to other supervisors, feel free to post those links in the chat. I know many of you have posted comments, but if you have links to resources that would be useful to other supervisors, that would be a great thing as well. Certainly there are VISTA program requirements, but there are also many rewards from fulfilling the requirements and having your very satisfied members accomplishing the activities on their VAD. Don't forget to copy and paste any great ideas from the chat to your computer, especially if something sparks your interest. And so when it comes to resources, certainly you have contact with your CNCF state and regional office with regard to all things pertaining to member and project management. Some of your questions may be answered first by looking at information on the VISTA campus. Some of your questions may be answered by reviewing materials on VISTA member retention that are on the VISTA campus in terms of recorded webinars and resources. Having your members make it a lot easier for you to manage your project. And as you see in the chat, Kim and Mike posted a link to the Helpful Links document. Take a look at that because some of those resources may be new to you and can be useful to you as you successfully manage your members. And the last thing I want to point out about the VISTA campus is I'm sure you've been to the supervisor section of the VISTA campus. There's a lot of information there. Some new information is coming soon, but you want to navigate that section as well as navigate to the member section for information about the VISTA member handbook, specific VISTA member benefits, and the terms and conditions of service. And when it comes to support, finally, we show the slide because you know, by now you should know, the many different roles of the CNCF state or regional office. You can see that they work to develop projects, support your supervision, connect you to resources, and they also help you with things related to your VAD. So be sure that you go beyond the simple, but don't make your life too complicated. Every move you make, every step you take, that actually sounds like a song. I'm not going to sing it now because I won't embarrass you, but everything you do has an impact. and that will help you think about all of the steps to member management and how to navigate them. And in terms of next steps, I'm going to give you 5 quick next steps for you to think about as you move forward in managing your members. First, reflect on what you currently do to manage your members. Take some time to critically think about and ask your members, what works? What can I do to improve? Getting feedback from others is essential, especially when it's not feedback that you want to hear or is feedback that's useful to hear. Consider alternative options for managing your members. Is there anything you can or want to do differently? It could be as simple as restructuring the format or location of your regular meetings with your members to make them more effective and meaningful. Maybe it's giving them some responsibility and taking a step back and not micromanaging. Just think about it. Third, help yourself out and don't stress. Try not to overthink it. Again, make things easier for yourself by actively listening to members and taking notes. Don't feel like you have to intensely overhaul everything when you could just make iterative changes over time. Communicate with other supervisors like you're doing in this webinar, as well as on the VISTA Campus Supervisor Cafe, discussion forums, and elsewhere. Share resources, create partnerships, and collaborate. And then the other thing we mentioned is ask current VISTA members to be specific about what they need, how they think they can get what they need, and any recommendations they have. And I will add, if you have members that are about to end service, seriously consider conducting an exit interview that'll really give you some feedback on how the member service went and what recommendations they have for future VISTA members. You don't have to promise everything, but at least let them know that you are mindful of them and their service. You can find more suggested next steps at the bottom of the Helpful Links handout that you can download from the link in the chat panel.